For 2 consecutive days, the Philippines continue to be blessed with good news on the economic front. Yesterday, more foreign direct investments entered the country. For the first 6 months, the figures reached $917 million, close to 11% better than the 829 million pesos last year. For exports, the country made significant gains. So what is moving the country forward? The leadership of President Aquino, our people are more committed and united in competing in a global economy. Tonight we have Trade Undersecretary Cristina Panlilio to give us an insight on why the Philippines is on the way up. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Robert.
So let's start with the foreign direct investment. So what are the key drivers or reasons that there's an upward trend right now in terms of FDIs in the country?
Well, okay. Well, first of all, our macroeconomic performance has been very good. Talk of our merchandise exports, we've broken a milestone. In 2010, we followed the top also strongly in 2011, and then in 2012, we're seeing again another 7-8% growth. Our inward remittances are doing very well. It continues to grow. In spite of the fact that we hit already again record-breaking performance in 2011 of $20.4 billion. Now we're still growing by 6%. And then our service exports, our BPO industry has also been doing very well. We are poised to hit 13 billion this year. Our GDP, of course, you've seen the performance in the first semester. It's at 6.1%. Better, much better than last year, and of course we continue this phenomenal growth that was started in the latter part of 2010. So that's our GDP. So there are many other factors I can mention. Our financial industry, represented by our banking system, has also been showing tremendous growth in its loan portfolio, and of course more credible and remarkable is its past due ratio is I think at a historical low of 2%. Our ratings with leading rating institutions like Fitch, Moody's, Standard & Poor have rated us again higher this year. And then even our competitive ratings, it just came out last week from 75th, now we're 65th. We've improved 10 notches in this present rating period. So all of this macroeconomic indicators definitely augur well for investments in the Philippines.
So, sir, this continued upward trend and a lot of good news. What key reforms were done in the past addressed by the government, especially by the DTI, for this to happen right now?
Okay. Well, first of all, on the top of the list is really the Daang Matuwid crusade that the President has embarked on and has led us through these last 2 years. It's a crusade for eradicating, minimizing corruption, has proven successful in enjoining and of course that leadership by example, has really been very infectious and contagious. So when you have less corruption, then you see your bureaucracy, your agencies working more efficiently, and this is what the business sector wants: an efficient, hassle-free bureaucracy. Of course, we're still far from, let's say, the likes of the model Singapore bureaucracy, or perhaps the Hong Kong or Taiwanese bureaucracy, but we're getting there. It's a long haul. But the important thing is the President Aquino has started that move, that very critical move to bring about the cost of doing business in the Philippines much, much lower.
So with regards to your department at the DTI, what kinds of programs are being done or implemented in order to entice more foreign direct investors into our country?
All right. Right now, what we have instituted in the DTI is more like a personal sales force. We have trade attaches all over the world. We have around 35 of them. Of course, our ambassadors and our consuls, consul generals have been given the mandate to do more economic diplomacy. So all of this all of these people in the organization are doing personal selling of the Philippines. What we would like to see in the months to come and in our budgets for next year, let's say, is to add more budget for mass advertising of the Philippines as a veritable, as a strong investment destination of choice.
So in comparison to our neighboring countries, you mentioned a while ago Singapore getting a big bulk of foreign direct investments. What kind of lessons can we get from this in order for us to actually create programs here in the Philippines in order to entice more investment?
All right. You talk of Singapore, no? Well, Singapore achieved this in the 70s under President Lee Kuan Yew. Now, of course, in the case of Singapore, you might say that it was easier for them to do it because first, it's a very small country, a country the size of the province of Bohol. Then at that time, they had only 2 million people, population. So implementing a roadmap of I would say, a benevolent strongman, a benevolent dictator. I don't want to use that word, but anyway, that's what Singapore had, no? So implementing a very noble roadmap was very feasible and I would say convenient, no? With the smaller logistics to work with. Now the Philippines, well, of course, going back, Singapore's roadmap is fairly simple, export-oriented, clean up the bureaucracy, make the ease of doing business in the country at its lowest level, at its cheapest level. They were able to achieve that. In the Philippines, of course, it's more difficult. You know very well, we're 93 million people. We have a land area that is big. It's an archipelago, so islands, you know, separated. So implementing a nationwide reduction of the cost of doing business or improving the ease of doing business in our LGUs will be a more difficult task and a more difficult challenge to take on. But again, as I said, the Daang Matuwid crusade of the President, I'm sure inevitably will cascade down, you know, to the LGU level. It's leadership by example. That's very effective. We know that coming from the private sector, very successful enterprises, very successful corporations, multinationals, all were able to do what they've been able to do because of a transparent, assertive, and of course a leadership that is very credible.
So moving on to
I think is a very key ingredient to attaining our national goals.
So moving on to exports, are we seeing the same thing, an upward trend with regards to our exports? Do we see what industries are winners in export?
You know, Robert, the Philippines export characteristic is something like this. 50% of our merchandise exports, no, of our 51 billion that we hit, let's say in 2010, 48 billion last year, 50% of that is electronics. This year, unfortunately, the electronics industry is suffering badly. It has declined 20% vis-a-vis last year and previous year. Now, and yet, in spite of a 20% decline in 50% of our merchandise export, we are still growing. We are still growing. No? So the other 50% of our merchandise exports is growing at a much higher level to offset that decline in electronics, a major part of our exports. So that means that all the other export items, no, like for example, our fruit exports, our housewares, furniture exports, our car parts and components exports, mineral products exports are growing greater to compensate for that loss in electronics exports. So this is very good. So that means that we're able to even out. Well, of course, even out perhaps is a very positive word to use because 50% of your merchandise export is still just one sector. But at least what we're seeing is we're growing the other items, no? so much so that our dependency on electronics can be weaned down.
Sir, this upward trend that we're seeing right now, will this continue for the rest of the year despite the problems that's happening in Europe and the U.S.?
Yes, I think the problems of the U.S. and the European countries, the Western economies, have been there for the last 2 years. And yet, despite that growth in the Western economies, our exports, as I said, have grown by an average of around 7 to 8%, which means that we have weathered, or we're weathering positively, favorably, the world economic situation. This year, for December, we're still targeting to hit something like $54 billion, which will break the all-time high of $51.4 billion of 2010. This is still our target right now as we work with our exporters, with the Export Development Council and the Confederation of Exporters. We are emphasizing, we're articulating that we should try our best in the next 4 months to beat the all-time record of $51.4 billion of 2010.
Sir, and a final word from you. We know that your department is tasked with doing the promotions for our industry here in the Philippines. And that's a very nice task.
Can you please repeat that?
Sir, just a final word from you. We know that your department is tasked with doing the programs and promotions for our industry here in the Philippines.
Yes. What are we...
just a final word from you.
Yeah, as a final word?
Yes.
Okay, as a final word, I am enjoining and I'm calling on all Filipinos to make the Philippines do their part, even in their own small ways, to make the Philippines a continuing destination of choice. What do you mean? What do I mean by that? Well, in terms of keeping peace and order, that's very important to our foreign investors. Let's do our part to maintain peace and order. To help out in the effort to curtail and to eradicate, say, kidnappings, robberies, muggings, and the like. So peace and order is number one. Number two, diligence, and we continue to work hard. The Filipino workforce is known in the world, as one of the best. Its capability, our skills, is world class. So I enjoin our Filipino workers, mga aming kasama sa negosyo, sa kalakalan, ipagpatuloy natin itong pagkabilib ng mga banyaga sa ating kakayanan.
Okay, on that note, thank you very much for joining us tonight on giving us your insights on the economy. That was Trade Undersecretary Cristino Panilio of the DTI.